Continue with our breaking news story. The statement from the presidency reading, by mutual agreement, the President Vladimir Putin of the Russian Federation will not be attending the BRICS summit, but the Russian Federation will be represented by the Foreign Minister, Mr. Sergei Lavrov. Ziyanda Ngcobo is on that story for us, and you're standing by to speak to the spokesperson of the ANC, who by and large have congratulated their president, Ziyanda, for what they say is walking the talk. How so?
Absolutely, and I think the sentiment here where we are, of course, at the BRICS Political Parties Plus Dialogue, is that this is a victory for South Africa in being able to really walk a tightrope. That's why Mahlengi Bhengu-Motsiri actually congratulated President Cyril Ramaphosa for actually reaching this outcome. As you've mentioned, his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, will no longer be coming to South Africa. So let's bring in the ANC spokesperson to talk about why then you would deem this as a victory. He's walked the talk, but in what sense?
Well, he's walked the talk in the sense of pursuing negotiations with all parties involved for as long as it took to get to this by mutual agreement decision for President Putin not to attend the BRICS summit. We do think that it positions South Africa quite well in terms of its non-alignment position, but also South Africa took a very firm stance that we would like to have President Putin in South Africa.
And that's really been your stance, that you welcome Putin coming here. But a lot of criticism was leveled against the ANC-led government to say, why don't you just ask Putin not to come? If he's really your friend, he should also be caring about the precarious position that South Africa was placed in through that issuing of the warrant of arrest.
Well, I suppose that the ANC, as well as the governing party in South Africa, would not come to such a decision without consulting. I do think that a lot of emphasis needed to be placed on diplomatic channels because we still are part of a rules-based system. In fact, it speaks very strongly also about the respect of the rule of law. It also speaks very strongly about the President Putin was also gracious enough to understand what would have been a sticky situation had this happened. And so I do think that it's a win-win situation either way you look at it. Also because the Russian delegation will be there at the summit. And so we're not losing or missing out on any member state in the BRICS community.
But you could also argue that perhaps instead of congratulating your president, that he's actually benefiting from circumstances that weren't necessarily in his control. So, for an example, we saw that the leader of Wagner, Prigozhin, actually, instituting what is now being dubbed a failed insurrection against Putin, which thus weakened him, and so that Ramaphosa would have benefited due to the weakened position of Putin.
Well, I pretty much doubt that. I do think that, I think also it's in the nature of this consultative style of our president to then pursue negotiations. I don't think there's any other way in which this could have been done in the same way that South Africa tackles geopolitical matters, placing emphasis on respect for the rule of law, placing strong emphasis in consultation. And apart from that, really, I doubt there will be anything to it. We're here now. BRICS summit in August is going to proceed. It's going to proceed in an uninterrupted manner. We possibly have taken away the negative focus on the BRICS summit, which has so many things to deal with related to development, justice, peace and progress in the developing world. So we do think that, in fact, in retrospect, this decision enables everyone to focus on the upcoming BRICS summit and focus on the issues of the day that face communities, countries, and the people in the developing world, and no deflection from that.
And I mean, in politics, sometimes it is about perception and optics, and the absence of Russian President Vladimir Putin for the first time, I'm stand to be corrected, not attending a BRICS summit could also be viewed as sort of a weakening of what this very bloc is trying to do to be given alternative in terms of multilateral systems, in terms of governance, new world order. Is that something that the ANC ANC is also looking at, to say that, you know, the failure of him to be here in that photo op with all those presidents may also scupper what you're saying, the BRICS summit is needing to focus on other issues?
Well, I don't want to downplay the role of photo ops, but I do wish to say that the BRICS summit is still going to be focusing on the most important issues of making sure that there's development and there's progress, economic progress and otherwise. Secondly, Ziyanda, if you look at the agenda, even of these BRICS political parties plus dialogue, you can already see what is being discussed in the Commission, that countries in the Global South are very focused on securing their independence at the table, where world decisions are negotiated. You can already see that, in fact, that horse has bolted in terms of developing countries claiming their place, you know, at the table. So I doubt that would actually be scuppered by President Putin not attending in person. Russia will be represented, and we will proceed and will focus on those issues. I do agree with, of course, optics are important to manage, especially in the space in which we are. But I think it was a tightrope, whichever way you look at it.
Very quickly, I mean, others, and I can anticipate those who are pro-Russia supporters, could say that, you know, maybe through diplomatic channels, that this may cause a fallout at some stage, because it would seem that South Africa bowed down to pressure from the West.
Well, we're not able to confirm something of the kind. And of course, this announcement has just been made not long ago. We have to go and make an assessment of the aftermath of this decision. Now I'm speaking organizationally, not for South Africa. And certainly that would be one of those things that we look out for. But I do think that South Africa has come across, I mean, the president formed part of the peace talks to Russia and Ukraine. South Africa and Africa have really cemented their role in the geopolitical environment. It cannot be now that there's a decision of this nature and it suddenly undoes everything that has been happening in the past few months.
All right. Mahlengi Bhengu-Motsiri speaks on behalf of the African National Congress, of course, reacting to the breaking news coming out this hour. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, will no longer be attending the BRICS summit. According to the presidency statement, it's by mutual agreement.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, thank you very much for that update. Mahlengi Bhengu speaks of a photo opportunity, and that picture behind me will never look the same after August, because in attendance will be the presidents of China, India, South Africa, Brazil, without the president of the Federation of Russia, and that is Vladimir Putin. He will not be coming to the BRICS summit. So that picture behind me will look completely different after the BRICS summit that will be hosted by South Africa in August.